Hi everybody. I'm going to be talking about leadership journeys for the next 10 minutes or so. And then we're going to try to invite our Olympians into the discussion about leadership and what it means to them and some of the things that they've learned because of their elite sport journeys. Some really basic objectives for today, so I hope you're going to be able to go away, recognise your own leadership capacity, understand the individuality of leadership journeys, challenge a myth that leadership's for something that's later in your careers, which is what I hear quite a lot, and to share some ideas that might support your own leadership journeys. And before I get into that, what I'd like everybody to do is, could you all put your hands up if you're able to? If not, otherwise, signify a way that you're going to participate. So everybody put your hands up, please. Okay? And I want you to keep your hand up if you consider yourself to be a leader or to potentially be a leader. Yeah? Wobbling. That is great. Now put your hands down. So often when I ask that question of students, they kind of go, not sure, don't think so, don't see myself as a leader. So obviously in this room we've got cream of the crop. There's so many of you thinking that you're leaders, which is great, or potentially going to be leaders. I'm sure lots of you would have seen definitions of leadership, and there are tons of them. This is one that I particularly like. Leadership's a process of social influence which maximises the efforts of others towards the achievement of a goal. And I really, really like this one because I think it massively resonates with me as a physio. And I think in terms of thinking about groups of people who've got the potential to be leaders, I think that the physio workforce has got a massive head start. We've got lots of the skills which I think make really good leaders. I think we're compassionate and empathetic. I think we're solutions focused. I think we can be really effective communicators. I know we've talked quite a bit about communication already today in the context of appointments and interactions with service users. I think we have to motivate people. We have to be influential. We have to manage complexity, and we've heard a bit about that earlier on as well in terms of the complexity of the healthcare environment that we're in and you're all entering. So you've got a head start in leadership. You're already developing lots of skills. There'll be skills that you're bringing by the fact that you've seen that physiotherapy is a profession for you. So don't forget that. This is a bit of a list of my work experiences, bits of learning, roles that I've had over the years, over the 17, 18 years that since I graduated. And I think for me, the thing that, when I talk about my career journey with people, and particularly students, some of the things that really stand out are perhaps the things that aren't on there. So it was talked about earlier on in the day, I didn't do my junior rotations. It was talked about in terms of lots of people's development and people doing their clinical masters and PhDs. I didn't do a clinical masters or a PhD. I also stepped out of physio for a period of time. I didn't stay within the profession. I developed some experiences within the mental health area of practice. And the reason I'm talking about this is not because I've got anything against rotations. I think they're great. They do help you develop your skills. All the things that I said earlier were true. I don't have anything against clinical masters. They're obviously amazing and a great way of developing your skill set. The reason why I'm talking about this is just to highlight there are many ways to get to where you're going. You won't necessarily be able to follow a standard path or the typical path, and that's okay. There are more ways to get from A to B. So I do want you to take that away, because sometimes when I speak to students, they can be laser focused on, I've got to do it this way. This is how my journey has to play out. It kind of doesn't. That's not really the reality of professional life in particular. So you can do it your own way. It doesn't mean don't listen to the advice that you get given from people who've got lots of insights that are going to be helpful. But our careers are varied. There's lots of ways to progress. Now, through my career journey, as I reflect on it up to this point, I recognise that there's lots of points where when I had different roles, different jobs, different responsibilities, I really had to develop particular skills, and they're skills that have all contributed to me becoming the leader I am today, someone that's still needing to develop my skills, but someone that has accumulated a number of skills. And I mentioned before, communication was a really big thing before I graduated, and then getting to the point of being a junior physio, seeing patients, interacting with colleagues in the work context, with the expectations that come of being a qualified physio as opposed to a student or someone observing. My communication had to make a massive leap forwards, and that's one of the things that has had to continue every single day since. And I'll pull out a couple of other examples. When I got into a more senior management role, and I was an operations manager, so running a number of services across multiple sites, I had to learn to be really creative. I had to learn how to deliver things when I didn't necessarily have all the resources that were available. I had to ensure that I was meeting objectives when there was lots of competing priorities, and I had to be creative, and that also included in the way in which I had to support and manage teams in different ways. And probably another example, when I started to get into mentoring, I had to really improve my skills of being self-aware when you're in one-on-one interactions with people. Your influence, particularly in a professional environment where people are coming to you with an ask, a need, an opportunity to support them, being aware of the impact of your words is really, really critical. And I think something that we're sensitive to as clinicians, but I found in a professional development context, you have to be equally aware of it. So all the way through my career journey, I've developed these skills which have contributed to my ability to be a leader. And one of the things that is probably not on here, but I think was on the early slide, was I decided that I, at a certain point, was going to do a management and leadership master's. So I didn't do a clinical one, but I did do a master's in management and leadership. And for me, that was really critical because I moved more towards management and leadership roles, away from directly clinical patient-facing roles, but realised that if I was going to develop in that space, I still needed to do CPD around the things that I was doing, which sometimes isn't the case. Sometimes a lot of our leadership development can be learning on the job, learning through doing, not necessarily investing in your CPD in the way that you would your clinical development. So another bit of advice, if you're looking at getting into leadership and developing your leadership skills, do think about it in the ways that you would look at developing other areas of your practice. Now, this is something, again, that I have conversations with people about, this idea that your opportunities to lead come at the end of your career, and that your career is that straight line upward trajectory. The reality of it is, it's not like that. It's a bit more like this. It's going to be up and down. You're going to take forwards and backwards steps. You're going to have plateaus. You're going to hit barriers. Sometimes it's going to feel like you've got to a brick wall. But actually, there's going to be opportunities for you to lead and demonstrate leadership all the way through your careers. And that's a really exciting thing from my perspective. It's not something you're waiting to do. It's not a title that you're waiting to get. It's a mindset. It's a way of that you behave, the way that you interact, an approach to things. So do take away from this as well. Leadership's not for 10 years' time. You can all lead from where you are now. And there's, looking around the room, there's students and new grads who I'm fully aware are in leadership roles and are developing, are already leaders and are continuing to develop as leaders. So something that I've started to talk a bit more about, particularly in a mentoring context, is leadership being like skateboarding. Can anyone think why leadership's like skateboarding? Yeah? Fall over a lot. What was the other one? Had someone shout to me that? Falling off. So up and down. All of those fit, yeah? So for me, leadership's like skateboarding because you're probably not doing it properly if you don't fall flat on your face occasionally. Yeah? It will be something that if you are pushing yourself and you are trying to be brave and you're trying to do the right things, you'll occasionally get wrong. Yeah? If you're in your comfort zone, it's not right, you're not stretching yourself. So just like skateboarding, you keep trying to get better, you keep putting yourself in those challenging situations. Occasionally you're going to fall off, occasionally it's going to be painful. That's okay, yeah? You just have to pick yourself up, try and learn from it, and go again. And for me, that's an important one because of often the perfectionism I sometimes see in students that I speak to, that desire for it to be perfect all the time. Again, life's not like that. There are challenges, it can be difficult, so to do remember that. Now, if you're willing to give things a go, challenge yourself, and occasionally fall flat on your face, there's lots of opportunities to do it, yeah? So don't, as I mentioned already, leadership's not something for later on. There's lots of things that you can get involved with as a student right now. And there's some of the examples of the things that I know that people are already accessing and the things that you can access. Our student reps demonstrate great leadership and are taking on leadership roles. There are students that are have got leadership roles in our diversity networks. I've already heard a student talking today about running their own business. That's leadership. That's amazing. And there's other very entrepreneurial student physios that I've met in the past. Students can get involved in our professional networks. They can take on local university roles. They can get involved in some of the CSP's governance structures like our boards and regional networks. Students are also eligible to be on our council. We haven't had a student on council yet, but students can be. So there's lots of opportunities for you out there. Do seek them out if leadership is something that you feel you've got an interest in and a passion for. So a few take-home messages. I won't read them out because I'm conscious of time. I've talked a little about leadership and some of the things that I've learned along my journey, some of the things that I think are important for you all to take away. As mentioned earlier, we've got Frankie and Rebecca are physio students who are Olympians with us today, and I really want to invite some thoughts and reflections from them about their own physio journeys and the things that they think, skills that they think they've developed, particularly considering thinking about leadership, being Olympians and students at the same time.
Do you want to go? You can go first. I think there's lots of things that you learn like from doing physio that you can then translate into like anything in different aspects of life. But I think especially for me in my experience from sport, and there's lots of transferable skills. So I'm a rower and I row in a coxed 4, so there's 4 of us plus a cox in the boat. So it's 5 of us in a team really, and you've got to be collaborative and you've got to work together, because quite literally if we're not working together, the boat doesn't move. If we're not putting the blades in at the same time, the boat doesn't move. And I think that's actually translates really nicely to working within a team, like within a physio team, but also within the MDT, and like working together and making sure, I think it comes from a baseline level of respect for each other as well. And yeah, I think there's lots of skills like the communication and everything that can transfer over. I don't know what.
Yeah, I think even going into the actual physiology side of physiotherapy, I found that such a benefit to me in the lead up to the Olympics. I'm quite an injury-prone athlete. I carry a lot of injuries. I've got injuries that I'm going to have to, manage for the rest of my life. And being able to do this course kind of gave me the knowledge that I needed to actually be able to get to the Olympics. I think without studying physiotherapy, I wouldn't be able to have the confidence in myself and in my knowledge to take over my own plan, and work with my physios on our team to, just make the right plan for me and know why I'm doing things. I understand my own injuries, I understand my body, I understand what's needed of me and of my sport. Doing this course and having that understanding gave me the confidence to kind of lead my own entire programme going into the Olympics. That's a massive thing that I took from doing this course. And I wouldn't have had the confidence in myself to do that before. You're in a team amongst professionals who've been doing this for years and years and years, and to kind of just take lead on what I was doing and develop my own plan and develop my own training. That's the biggest thing that I've taken from studying physiotherapy and training at the same time.
And perhaps a bit of an obvious question, but what's it like juggling studies, training and competing in an elite environment?
For me, it's the best thing I ever done. I tell all of the young, I'm 24 and I'm one of the oldest on the team now, which is, yeah. But I tell we get people coming onto the team at 16, 17 years old, and I tell all of them, if you've got plans after sport, you don't know how long sport's going to last. Things happen. You could have 10 years, you could have 2 years. Make the most of the time that we have. Study if you want to study. Go to university if you want to go to the university. Because honestly, it's the best thing that I've done. It's a high pressured environment, and sometimes we'll go into training, we'll have a bad session, and it feels like it's the end of the world. It sounds crazy, but it feels like it's the end of the world. And being able to take time away from that and to go to university and work alongside people who are working in ICU departments and dealing with things that really, really matter and are really, really important. Just kind of put all of the things that I thought I was worrying about into perspective. And yeah, that was, I tell everyone, go do university.
Yeah, I'd say the same. It's hard to juggle both elite sport and studies, and especially on placements, that's when I've struggled realistically. Because trying to do being on your feet all day and learning on the job, and then having to go and do 2 sessions in the evening or morning, evening, it is difficult to juggle. But I think, like you said, it's having something different to focus on. It's putting things into perspective. And I think they always say when you're working, you have to have hobbies and stuff to do outside of your work, so that it's a time to switch off. And I think, for me, I'm so interested in it, and it's something that I've wanted to do my whole life. And I think I'm really looking forward. I deferred last year, and I'm really looking forward to going on to placement to just sort of do something different that's different to rowing, around different people and people that have got different perspectives on life. Because we've been surrounded by people that are full-time athletes for the last, leading into Paris, a long time, especially it was very intense. And I think it's just nice to coming off the back of Paris to go and do normal stuff and develop our skills more. And then there's things that we can then transfer and take into our training environments.
Thank you for that. It's really insightful. Very, very quick. Obviously, the nature of sport means that you're going to have times where you're injured or don't win. Can you tell us what you've learnt from sport in terms of how it's helped you with your resilience or recovering from disappointment, and things that might be relevant to a learning or a professional environment?
For me, I've had injuries for as long as I can remember. There's a reason why I'm studying physiotherapy. It was so bumpy, and I think every time I had an injury, or every time I had a surgery, or any time I was in recovery or anything like that, I kind of used that as the motivation for pushing myself on. And I did find that every time I kind of had a dip, I would come back, and I would, weirdly enough, without training, I did get better. And I think it was the mental resilience that taught me that. And I have found the same throughout university. I think it's just both of them have kind of taught me together skills to, when you've fallen down, to pick yourself back up. Training for World Championships and for Olympics on site, alongside studying for exams. Sometimes one of them can take a hit. Which the next time I put things in place and I adapted things to make sure that didn't happen again. So for me, that was my learning, how to overcome and adapt, and okay, that didn't work, let's figure out how to fix it.
Yeah.
I think we're at time. But thank you. That was really, really interesting. We're all going to be at the networking session afterwards and around for a little bit longer. So if there's any other questions or queries, do come and find us. So thanks, everyone.
So next we'll listen to a presentation titled Leadership Skills from Pillar to Practice.
Hello everyone, good afternoon. We're continuing the leadership theme, which is great. My name's Jen. I'm one of the professional advisors at the CSP, and I'm the lead for practice-based learning, so all things placement, which is a great job. I love it. So, to set the scene, in recent years, we've seen so much innovation in how practice-based learning is delivered. It is just such an exciting area right now, and we're seeing such fantastic opportunities for our learners in the kind of skills that they're developing as an undergraduate. It's absolutely amazing, or in pre-registration learning, should I say. We're seeing so many different models of supervision now, such as a 2-to-1 model, sometimes 4-to-1 model, and sometimes a whole team approach to practice-based learning. And I'm sure some of you will probably have experienced some of these different models of supervision when you've been out on placement. So things are changing all the time. We're also seeing placements across all 4 pillars of practice, which is, again, something that's great and really developing area of practice-based learning. And it was so nice to hear this morning one of our presenters talk about the placements in the health and justice system. So it's just showing how many different areas our physio learners are getting exposure to. But today we're going to talk about leadership placements. And before I have 2 fantastic speakers coming to share their experience with you today, I'd just like to get a show of hands. How many of you have had a leadership placement so far? Oh, a few of you. Fantastic. Great. Thank you. It's so nice to see that there's a little bit more leadership placements going on, which is wonderful. Right. Now I've set the scene a little bit, I would like to introduce our 2 speakers. Lewis, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. So I'm Lewis Wright. I'm a third-year student at the University of Nottingham.
Hi everyone, I'm Kimberly. I'm a Band 5 physiotherapist. I qualified last year and I've been working for the last 12 months or so. Yeah.
So Lewis and Kim are going to talk about our experience of leadership placements and talk about the benefits and the skills that they've developed on these placements.
Did you need that? Perfect. Hi everyone. So yeah, I've introduced myself, but as I said, I'm a third-year student, but I did my my placement on my second year, so it was my second ever placement, leadership placement. I was a bit like, what's that? What am I going to be doing? So 5 weeks, it was the length of the placement, and I was working remotely, which was the first surprise to me. I was like, wait, we're going back to like COVID times? But actually it worked really nicely. So to set the scene, I had a fantastic educator who sort of introduced what we'd be doing throughout the 5 weeks, and then kind of left us to it a little bit, which was really quite nice. Within those 5 weeks, we focused on looking at first our own self, so looking at our own personality styles, our own learning styles, so using Honey and Mumford and Myers-Briggs type indicator, if anybody's heard of them. And they helped us to sort of look at what we sort of, the way that we work, what makes us tick, and then we could actually go and look outside of ourselves at that point. So we were able to look then and focus in on sort of a bit more around the different AHP roles that are out there, the different sort of jobs that AHPs do, and the career paths that they can follow. So really interested in the fact that we were able to find out that they're not quite as linear as you think. So you don't have to follow a step-by-step process to get to that end result, a bit like the previous presentation. We saw that there are actually lots of other options out there. We were also then looking into sort of AHP faculties and councils, so just to understand a bit more about the inner workings of how it works sort of in the background. So we're kind of a cog in that massive wheel, and there's a lot going on there. And then looking even bigger at the actual integrated care system. So we spent a bit of time in the first week just looking at this stuff to kind of give us a bit of context as to where we sit, and then got into the real good stuff, which was looking at leadership e-learning. So we actually went through, if anybody's heard of it, it's called the Edward Jenner course. So it's a course that you can access through the NHS e-learning, and it's pitched basically at anybody who wants to become a manager or who has just become a manager, so within the first year or two of that position. And it sets the scene a lot around sort of some of the skills that you need to be a leader, to be a manager, within that profession. So a really good course, and we were able to sort of manage our own time in doing that. Then we were set a task. So our project for the 5 weeks was to work on a transition of a website, basically. So the website itself was all to do with work experience for people who want to potentially become an AHP. And that website that it was hosted on was sort of quite old, quite clunky, and was closing down soon. So our task was to sort of bring it back to life, make it a lot more appealing, a lot more accessible, and to move it to a different server effectively. So I was working with another student from the uni, and we worked basically just as a project team between ourselves, updating back to our educator rather than being told what to do, which was quite an interesting sort of concept because we're not quite used to that, but worked really nicely between us too. Alongside doing all of that, we also took over their Twitter account. So the AHP faculty that we worked for, Sherwood Forest Hospitals, they basically had a Twitter account that we took control of and were able to present whatever we wanted on there. We didn't quite sort of do what we wanted. We still kind of ran it by them, but we were able to basically use that as a platform to share what we'd learned, what we'd been doing, and any other information that we wanted to sort of relay out there. That then led into us actually being asked to do a skills session where we were teaching other AHPs all about health inequalities, because we'd been looking into it and we'd shared it on the Twitter account, and before we knew it, we were delivering a 30-minute session on it. So that's sort of some of the stuff we did, and the next slide is more my reflections on it. So for me, I've come from a previous career, so I've sort of had a big career change, and in that career, I had done a bit of leadership and management stuff before. So I was a bit apprehensive about it. I was a bit like, am I going to learn that much from this or not? And actually, it was a real opportunity to learn. So took a lot from the course that we did, the Edward Jenner course, but also just learning all about how it works in the background from an AHP perspective. What we did find as well was it's really flexible. So as I said, we got that autonomy to actually sort of manage the project between ourselves. And in doing that, we were able to sort of manage our times as well that we would work. So for me, I was able to volunteer for a charity on Tuesday mornings and be able to go and do that for the 5 weeks while I was still on placement, which felt really nice because I was able to sort of do other things that sort of make me happy at the same time as achieving what I need on this. The main thing for me was actually that it sort of exposed me to the non-clinical areas of this job and this world. So I was able to see that there's not just that sort of clinical route. There's a lot more out there. You can go into sort of leadership, you can go into project areas, you can go into research and education. You don't necessarily have to just devote all your time to clinical. And what I also found was it was a great option to be able to start networking with people. And this is what led to this today. So I've worked with Jen on that course. And I found just that in general, everybody was very supportive, had fantastic educators, but also was able to sort of work with everybody else that we interacted with. And for me, it was a great opportunity. Even though I thought that I sort of had some of that leadership stuff, I developed lots of new important skills, things like presenting and organising, prioritising, all of that stuff that actually will sort of stand you in good stead throughout your career. So for me, as I say, was quite apprehensive at first, but now here to sort of sing the praises of a leadership placement because it's really worthwhile. Cool. No props.
Hi everyone. So I've already introduced myself, but yes, I'm Kim, and I'm a physiotherapist. So I actually qualified last year. I graduated from the University of Nottingham with my bachelor's degree, and I started working in September. So since graduation, I've completed 2 rotations. My first one was 6 months on the elderly care unit, and then I spent 6 months in the community in the adult community rehab team. I've just started my 3rd rotation, still in community, but I'm now on the neuro side. But what I really want to speak about today was how my experiences of 2 alternative style placements benefited me as a Band 5 physiotherapist. So while I was still at uni, I had 2 different styles. I had the leadership placement, and then I had like an alternative style placement at a health tech company called Surgery Hero. So I'll start off with the leadership placement. I was very lucky to work with Jen. She was actually my educator, and that's the reason why I'm actually here today. It's been a great journey the last 2 years, still getting to know her and working alongside her. So what we did in the leadership placement was I worked alongside Jen and 3 other girls on my course. And we had to essentially come together and create an event to sort of educate and to encourage sort of clinical practice educators and how to diversify placements and also to increase the number of placements. So this meant that we presented and encouraged the use of different placement model types, such as the 2-to-1 model, where 2 students will be assigned to 1 educator, and as well as presenting the value of leadership placements and research style placements as well. We also had the opportunity to get stuck into various projects, and one very close to my heart, which is encouraging equality, diversity, and inclusivity. So alongside doing the leadership things, Jen also brought us onto other projects as well. And then we also had the opportunity to speak and contribute in meetings with senior members of staff, as well as gaining extra accreditations, like Luce was saying, such as the Edward Jenner program. So just briefly, I'll talk about Surgery Hero. So Surgery Hero was a health tech company who were trying to sort of involve physiotherapy within their business model. Their aim as a company was to provide prehab digitally to people who were having elective surgeries. Again, this is something that Jen had set up, which was an amazing opportunity to apply what I had learned in my leadership placement in that placement as well. So the main points I wanted to get across was how these placements particularly benefited me as a Band 5 and the transferable skills that I picked up while I was there. So the first one was team working. I gained the ability to sort of manage large projects and working between different people who've got different ideas, who have a different way of approaching things. And that's just something that was really strengthened over my 4 weeks in the leadership placement. I was also able to partake in research. So at Surgery Hero, we did a lot of literature reviews to basically support the need for telehealth and comparing that with sort of face-to-face, thank you, face-to-face rehab. Also the ability to prioritize, so picking and choosing what's most important, what needs to get done first, and then applying that when I started my job. The next thing was presentation skills. So me standing here today is actually an example of how that leadership placement helped me, because I'm someone that gets very nervous, very anxious, but standing in front of loads of people. I was sitting right at the front, so I didn't realize how many people are here, but honestly, it shows a lot of the growth that you get from having something like this. So I would never neglect the sort of value of things like leadership placements. So how do I use these things on a day-to-day basis? So in my time on the elderly care wards, I would have to do things like leading MDM meetings, so the multidisciplinary meetings. As one of the gentlemen was saying earlier, I did not realize how much I would be responsible for discharge planning once I qualified. And once you hear those 4 words, medically fit for discharge, suddenly everyone is looking at you. And it really took some growing up to decide when and how to get someone home nice and safely. And then obviously working as a team within the MDT, as well as sort of prioritizing caseload. Oh, I forgot to switch my slide. You guys didn't realize this is my slide, everybody. Yeah, and then doing things like policy improvement projects, teaching students, MDT working, leading the meetings, and then managing my caseload and the extra things that come along with that. Yeah, and that's essentially what I did. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Such fantastic experiences shared there. And I hope if you get offered a leadership placement, that it's something that you'll be really enthusiastic about and throw yourself into, which I'm sure you will. So I don't think we've got time for questions right now, but please come and find us if you'd like to ask anything about leadership placements. Thank you.